Hi everyone, my name is Ethel Villafranca and I am a museologist. That is someone who studies museums. I recently completed my PhD at the University of Melbourne, and my research, curated learning, explored teaching strategies of museums that school teachers can adopt in their classroom practice to help students engage with learning on a deeper level. I'm also the curator and exhibition manager of the Museum of Chinese Australian History here in Melbourne, Australia. So I have been working in museums and libraries since 1998, but whenever I speak to other gallery, library, archive, and museum or GLAM practitioners, I always learn something new or find something that is different from my own experience and studies. And I find that quite exciting and a really thrilling experience. I thought, why not give GLAM friends and why not invite GLAM friends and colleagues from different parts of the world so we can talk about the work that we do and the various pathways that we've taken to get to where we are in the GLAM world. So these conversations are more about the individuals I'm chatting with, but we, of course, will also talk about the institution that they are part of. If you're not a glamour, that's all right. This is a perfect opportunity to ask us any question you may have about the world that we live in. I mean, the work that we do. So drop them in the comments section below. Don't be shy. Remember, there are no silly questions. If you're a fellow glamour, feel free to share with us what's going on in your neck of the woods. And of course, you can also ask us questions. So, in the last 5 episodes, we've talked about museums and libraries, exhibitions and educations or public programs, as well as taking care of objects. We've had conversations with curators, educators, collections manager, librarian. But in the GLAM world, there are other roles and people that are necessary to make these GLAM institutions work. And today, for episode number 6, we are talking to someone who focuses on marketing and communications. So marketing and communications separately or combined are very important aspects of museum work. I have always believed that you can have the most fabulous exhibition or event, but if no one participates in it because no one knows about it, then this activity fails in contributing to the museum's mission. Markham people can help us engage with our communities on a deeper level, especially now that physical or face to face engagement is highly limited. So today, we are chatting with Emma Eldridge. Emma has had 15 years of marketing and communications experience in agency, media, not for profit, and the arts. She has recently been involved at Chunky Move, Leon House Museum, Melbourne Recital Centre, National Gallery of Victoria, and Australia Ballet School. She is currently the Marketing and Communications Manager of the Jewish Museum of Australia, where she covers brand, content, media and PR, partnerships, product development and shop, social media, and stakeholder communication. Woo, that's a long list. We'll have to ask her later about how she's managing all of that. Emma prides herself on anchoring everything she does in audience research and creative thinking, as well as keeping abreast of developments in best practice and technology. All right, let me add Emma. Hi, Emma.
Hi. Hello, everybody.
Thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure, absolute pleasure.
You are such a busy lady.
I'm very busy, that's right. Yeah, my job is very multifaceted. I cover a lot of bases, but I think that's pretty normal in a community museum.
And so let's jump in. Let's start with what does your workday look like pre-COVID?
Well, my role is Marketing and Communications Manager, as you said. Thank you for your amazing introduction. that includes quite a lot of different things at the Jewish Museum of Australia. So everything from marketing and communication strategy and execution, writing and editing content, for everything from an ad to an EDM to social media, print publications, and website content, media and PR. So that involves like media pitching as well as kind of community and partnerships pitching, partnerships and programming, product development and shop curation. So particularly this year, but increasingly during lockdown, I've been doing more and more of that. Audience analysis. So at the museum, we use the Morris Hargraves McIntyre cultural segmentation model. So increasing our museum's use of those culture segments so that we can be a really audience-focused organisation. And also web content management. So ensuring our website is up to date, our tribe booking is up to date, and so forth. So yeah, I really do a little bit of everything at the museum. A typical pre-COVID day, I can hardly even remember it at all. It feels like we've lived a year or 10 years in 6 months. But a general day would have involved a lot of emailing of externals, but also meeting with our team, because the Jewish Museum of Australia is still very much a kind of in-person workplace, or was until working from home. So things have obviously shifted a lot, and that's been a challenge that we've faced during this extended period of working from home, because our museum closed on the 16th of March and has yet to reopen.
Right. So are you finding that with the doors closed right now, are you finding, share with us how you are continuing to engage with your community?
Sure. So obviously almost everything that we do has shifted online. So marketing and communications has been a massive part of that. We've really wanted, our collection is the heart of our institution. It's a 20,000 strong collection, and it's the largest repository of the Australian Jewish experience in the world. So we've really been working to showcase our collection as much as possible during COVID via social online. Our programming has gone entirely digital, so I've worked very closely with our education and programs manager, Tamar Simon, to translate as much of our existing programming onto Zoom, but also really innovate in the kind of programming space that we offer. So doing great things like family downloadables so that kids can have, Jewish museum fueled crafternoons at home, giving maybe working parents a bit of a break for a few hours. We've translated our short courses, which is one of our best loved offers at the museum, onto Zoom. So working with what we affectionately term our baby Zoomers to teach them all how to use Zoom. And that's been really incredible for us, because we've been able to engage new audiences very successfully. Previously our short courses would have been attended by people in our close community only, but now we're attracting people from across Victoria, from across Australia, and also around the world. And we've also been able to showcase talent, incredible educators from around the world as well. I think at the moment we've got an incredible short course with Robin Moss, who's works out of London, and we have another one coming up with Lawrence Mazelon, who works out of the Tisch Academy out of New York University. And we have done incredible new kind of content streams. We launched something very early on in COVID called our Love Letters project, where we worked with influencers across the whole spectrum of Jewish life, from music and film and comedy and literature, podcasts, you name it, craft, art. And we got them to think of 5 works in their particular medium that inspire hope and resilience, so that we could really inspire our community and the whole Victorian and Australian community during this incredibly strange time. And those love letters just really repositioned our museum, and it really contributed to that rebranding that we'll speak about a little further on. And one really beautiful outcome of that Love Letters project was we asked people to send in artworks inspired by that project. So existing or new artworks, whether you're an emerging or an established or mid-career artist, on the theme of illumination, which is our brand manifesto, is to illuminate Jewish life. And we were inundated with, so many of these incredible artworks. And as a consequence of that, we created a series of Love Letters project postcards, 50% of which, the sales of which, we returned to the artists. So that was our way of showing our love for the arts community, which has been a little overlooked during COVID in terms of support, even though we've been buttressing everyone's spirits, and really, I guess, really facilitating people's ability to send a love letter in the post, just like our Love Letters project, to buy a beautiful postcard and pop some love in the mail to someone by one of those beautiful Love Letters project postcards. So we've done everything. There's been a lot happening.
Can I just clarify? So the Love Letters initiative or project, was this planned before COVID?
No.
Or
we planned it 1 week. 1 week closed on the 16th of March, and I think the first one came out 2 weeks later. The first one was a very beautiful COVID or love letter, a playlist on Spotify curated by the artistic directors of the Festival of Jewish Arts and Music, and we encouraged everyone to suggest their incredible songs by Jewish musical artists, and we added them to that playlist as well. And we got emails from all over Australia, and actually some from internationally as well, saying, I've been listening to this playlist while I'm cooking my dinner, while we're in stage 3 or stage 4 lockdown, and it's really buoying my spirits. So that was the first one, and I think we did 15, so there was a lot. They're all available on our website if you look at jewishmuseum.com.au/blog. And the final one, our 15th one, I think it is, was the announcement of our major exhibition opening in hopefully in December, of the iconic Australian artist Mirka Mora, who was a Holocaust survivor also, and kind of signing off our Love Letters project with the ultimate love letter of art and survival and embrace and celebration of life and colour, which Mirka Mora really signifies to people in Australia.
That's so amazing.
There was a lot of work. There was one a week. So getting around, puzzling, getting on to Robert Nelson, the Age art critic, and, Nadine von Cohen, who's a very famous young kind of Sydney Jewish writer and comedian, and Ezra Bookman, who's this incredible man in New York who is very interested in ritual and the artistic kind of basis around that in Judaism in New York City. We just profiled so many different people. Tammy Kanat, who's an incredible Melbourne weaver, who's recently had an exhibition at the NGV. It closed during lockdown. So we were really able to showcase all the richness and diversity of what makes up Jewish life and the best of Jewish life, I suppose. And the idea behind that was really just to send love to the community, because, it has been the hardest time, and we just didn't want people to feel disconnected. We wanted people to feel together while apart.
How many, I have to ask, and I'm sure people who are listening are also curious. How many staff do you have in marketing and communication unit?
Yeah, so there's just me. I do have an incredible graphic design duo that I work with externally, who come up with, came up with the incredible graphic for the love letters and the tiles, so that every week they worked with us on the rebrand. They just did our lovely new kind of like brand for our new Spotlight series, which are special events that illuminate Jewish life, which we've just launched for the upcoming High Holidays. So I do have them that I work with. I'm not a graphic designer by any stretch. And we have a photographer that we work with, but we haven't really been working so much with her during this time because obviously there hasn't been a lot to photograph during lockdown, except for she really helped a lot with the imagery on our website and for our new online shop that we've also launched during lockdown. But yeah, and that's it's me. It sounds funny, but it's true. I do work really closely with my colleague Tamar Simons, who's our education programs manager. So and also our new director and CEO Jessica Bram, and our curatorial and collections team, like you, Ethel, incredible brains trust. But as for most of the ideation and the nuts and bolts execution, it's predominantly me. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. For you to want to come up with all of this, well, outside we're grappling with what's going on in the pandemic, and for you to be able to turn around and do something like this and get the response of the community, such positive response from the community, you must have. I read your bio, and
it's possible. I think that many people have been working. I'm sure everyone in the GLAM sector has been working above and beyond during this time, because it's almost been that we have to. Well, there's the dual mission of what the arts is for, to enhance life and respond to what's happening in the world and all these things, but also to really prove our worth in this time when in some countries in Australia here, arts workers and artists were some of the only ones not to be eligible for government benefits and so forth. So we've really, I think people in the arts have really wanted to show that we want to support our community, but also to show our worth and how important we are in times of crisis. I think people really turn to the arts for comfort and succor in a way.
But Emma, what I'm getting at is I have not seen a degree so far that is, or even a course or a subject in uni that says marketing and communication for museums or for
I'm sure it does. Yeah. Maybe there's like
where is this coming from? Where did you pick up this eye? This?
Yeah, so my first job actually as a child, well, not a child labourer or something like that, but a young person, 15 or 16, was in an art gallery actually. My father is an artisan cabinet maker, and for his whole life he worked with artists and galleries, and one of the first commercial galleries in Melbourne, Australian galleries in Collingwood, he, got me a job there, working there on the weekends and during the holidays. So I worked there, through my later school years and university years. So I guess I always was engaged with art in that way. But no, I didn't study anything kind of like capital A arts or museum related at university. My undergrad was in media and comms, but also with Asian studies at Melbourne Uni. And then I went on to do a master's at UTS in Sydney in international studies. I really wanted to be like a diplomat or something like that. I wasn't thinking about working in the arts when I was in my early 20s. I finished my master's in Kyoto and came back, and I worked in the Japanese world for a long time. So my first job after graduating was at the Consul General of Japan, which was pretty much as far from the art world as you can get. I was doing things like helping Kubota sponsor, you know, the Royal Show in Sydney and, you know, all these sorts of things. It was a very fun job, but not very creative, I don't think. But then I did go on to work for Japan's Newswire and then Japan's public broadcaster. Those two jobs for around 5 or so years. So that journalistic training and production training, I think, was really important to my working content and problem solving, I guess, and being able to pivot and hustle now. And I loved doing that job. And I did do a lot of documentary work during that time, particularly with Indigenous artists. But yeah, I did have to come home to Melbourne eventually. My family is from Melbourne, and I just happened to get a job at the National Gallery of Victoria. I was very lucky. I got an entry-level job as the executive assistant to the head of marketing and communications, Lisa Sicella. And so I really got to see the top and the tail of marketing in a big, serious, you know, national institution, because I was helping her, you know, sitting in on board meetings with all the trustees, like planning the NGV's 150th anniversary celebrations. But then I would also sit with the marketing team and see their incredible work, you know, planning marketing for big blockbuster Melbourne Winter Masterpieces exhibitions and so forth. And I was just lucky that I was, you know, I guess I was a little bit of a hustler even then. And it was around the time that social media was just starting. And I said, look, can I do the social media? No one else really wanted to do it. So I started doing it. I think from that time, being a wire writer, I really had a knack, particularly for Twitter, because Twitter is, particularly in those days, it was much less graphic, and it was like doing wire writing. And yeah, I ended up getting promoted to a social media job, the first social media job in an arts institution in Australia, and did lots of wonderful, wonderful things like Australia's first Twinterviews and tweet ups, and had a really, really amazing time. I got to go on this incredible trip to New York. At that time, the NGV had these incredible scholarships that you could apply for as a staff member. And I got a scholarship to go and study social media in the arts context in New York, and, you know, spend a few weeks at the Met and MoMA and Booker Museum, and just meeting with everyone and taking it all in. And, you know, my little brain was kind of on fire after that. And yeah, that kind of really started my work in the digital field when it came to the arts, I suppose. And so, yeah, after that, I worked at Melbourne Recital Centre for a time, and then in agency. And I think that agency training was really important because, you know, agency teaches you to really go to a client service, and also it gives you a taste of working with big budgets. Like, you know, I did campaigns like for AR campaigns for Barbie, and, you know, things like that you could never work with $1 million campaigns at an arts institution. So it was a great experience to get a sense of what is possible, and technologies that you might not get to touch working in the arts or not-for-profit space. And then I worked for a cooperative research centre for a while, which was really, really fascinating. I've always been interested in research and policy, so doing kind of more cause-based marketing and social media. And after that experience, yes, I did go and work freelance for 5 years, and that's where I really developed beyond that digital space into the brand space as well, which is kind of what led to my job that I have now at the Jewish Museum, kind of bridging brand and content and partnerships, all sorts of things. So, you know, my husband often says to me, you know, you're a bit too much of an all-rounder. You know, you're not a specialist in, SEO or one of those things, but for a place like the Jewish Museum of Australia, and I think a lot of arts organisations, being an all-rounder, being able to do quite a lot of different things is quite a handy skill set.
Yeah, I quite agree. And many people in the GLAM industry would agree with that as well, especially for small community museums. You're not wearing just one hat. You're not just the curator. You're also doing something else. You're not just putting up exhibition. You're also sometimes designing a poster or writing, a press release or whatever it comes your way that needs to be done, because we're such small institutions that we have to be nimble. We have to be able to work with our colleagues and play on the strengths that each other has.
Yeah.
You mentioned branding, and this is what I was very, very interested in. Brand. And you mentioned, did you say that did you just launch your website recently, the museum's website?
Yeah, so essentially what happened was the museum closed on the 16th of March. We got our new director started with us in November, and the museum was due for a brand refresh. That was already on the cards before she started. That was kind of something that was given to me as a job for the future when I started at the museum last April. But often when you haven't, this is the museum's only the third director that we've had since the late 70s. So, it's our third. We're thinking about it as our third wave, and we really wanted to address that change with the brand. So, Jessica Bram, our new director and CEO, and I had a workshop in relation to the new brand, I think in late January. And I also, prior to that, kind of sent a sort of survey to the whole team asking for their feedback on the brand and how it's used and what's good about it and what's not good about it, and what kind of iterations might they like to see in future, to how could the brand be different to help them achieve their work better. And so I have this template that I've given to you about how you best workshop a brand, and the questions that you really ask are around a brand's manifesto, which I guess is its value statement, its story, the personality and voice of a brand, what's a brand's point of difference, who is the ultimate patron or desired patron of that brand, what is the look and feel of that brand. So it asks a lot of questions around that. And from that, I was able to crystallize the direction that I thought the brand needed to go in to brief our graphic designers. And that brief pretty much went in as the museum closed. So I think the incredible thing about lockdown and COVID, whatever you want to call it, is, the silver lining that you asked me about prior, is it when we were removed from our building, the sky was the limit. And because of that, we thought, okay, let's get this brand done. And let's get it done, and the new website done, and the new online shop done in time for this Love Letters project to finish, and for our big announcement of our big exhibition in mid-June. So essentially, we, in amongst all the other stuff that we were doing, we did work to refresh the brand. And I think we did it in about 2 months, because we then had to deliver it to our web designers to translate it into the refresh of our new website. And the brand and the imagery that our incredible photographer Marie-Louise Skeeb took over the course of the last year at the museum, those two things really affected that brand refresh. You know, the website itself, the architecture is relatively the same. It's still a WordPress. We haven't redesigned it, but it's the brand and the imagery and the colours and the font, how beautiful new font, that it has totally reimagined our brand. So it was a very interesting process because we have the love letters going out via a fresh new email newsletter every week, and just new stuff going out via social, online, incredible new programs that we're offering during COVID. And over those 15 weeks, that repositioning was starting to happen. And then as we announced our big major exhibition, our brand went live, our new website went live, our first ever online shop went live. And it was almost just kind of like the end of that journey, but the beginning of our greater new journey, which is with a new brand and with a new brand manifesto and story and values. So, yeah, it was certainly a lot to achieve in a very short amount of time. There was a few weekends spent, you know, updating every single image on the website, you know, doing all sorts of kind of crazy hours. But it was really worth it because, you know, we've truly entered that third wave of the museum's history and future now. And this COVID time has really allowed us to do that in a strange way. It's been what I said, that kind of silver lining of that time.
We're looking at right now, we're looking at the old logo and the new logo of the museum.
Yeah, that's right.
This was part of the brand, the exercise that you went through to rethink the brand of the museum. I'm going to show a few more. And
so the old brand, the new thing about the brand is the menorah. So something that we really, well, it's the new and the old. So our first ever brand, our first ever logo, I suppose, back in the late 70s, early 80s, was a very beautiful Art Deco menorah. And the initial vision of the museum was very arts focused. And then there was a stage where we changed our brand to the brand that you saw before. It's kind of doesn't have a brand mark. It's these two horizontal, whatever parallel lines actually do connect to the Magen David, the Jewish Star of David, but I don't think most people would be able to tell that from looking at it. It's a predominantly textual brand, and something that the team said when they saw it is they felt like it was quite corporate. It looks very similar to a lot of other Jewish museum brands all around the world. There's something about Jewish museum and Jewish organisation brands where they often use the colour blue, and they often use the Magen David. It's very omnipresent. But we didn't want to just make a brand out of nowhere. We wanted our brand to really connect to what we had conjured about what our manifesto and our story and our values should be going into this third wave. And the thing that we really thought from that is we really loved this word about illumination. And I think illumination applies to the arts in general, but it's particularly poignant for a Jewish organisation because light and candles and fire is so much part of the Jewish tradition and Jewish festivals. So I think when you look at the word illuminate, it, you know, to supply with light, to make luminous and shining, to make clear, to enlighten, to make illustrious and resplendent. They're all the things that we want to do when it comes to showcasing Jewish life. And so as soon as we settled on that manifesto, I knew the menorah, the Jewish candelabra, would be so perfect for our brand mark. And that is kind of when I discovered, just coincidentally, that our original brand was a very beautiful, more Art Deco, less modern menorah. So it was a very beautiful sense of back to the future, coming full circle, serendipity, what have you. And we were very conscious not just to, you know, slap a new logo on things. We really wanted that brand manifesto and story and values to start infusing everything that we do in this kind of third wave of the museum. So we really wanted to anchor the fact that the museum is at the intersection of art and Jewish culture, and a place for all people to share in the Australian Jewish experience. And then we really addressed our values. So, authentic, innovative, inclusive, open, but also the two very beautiful traditional Jewish values of chesed, which is compassion, kindness, generosity, and tikkun olam, which is, a desire to improve the world, to better the world. So those things have really infused everything that we've done in lockdown. We didn't realise it at the time, although we kind of did, I suppose, because we'd already workshopped the brand. The love letters are the perfect kind of crystallization of the new brand, and they really gave birth to the new brand in a way. That project really, really started that repositioning.
Can I just ask, because I know that some institutions I've worked for have done a rebrand exercise, and normally this would take months, if not at least a year. How long did this whole process take?
Yeah, it's a crazy question, Ethel, I know. So we did have that workshop and survey of the team at the end of January, and we did brief our graphic designers, our new graphic designers that I've worked with in the past, Mildred and Duck. They are absolutely incredible. So we did brief them kind of like mid-late Feb, but it really started, the work really started in earnest in March, and it was completed in May. So it was super quick. It was pretty much 2 months. Because we had to get all that to our partner in our web refresh, Right Angle Studio, so that they could actually get the new website up and running. And they needed the brand. They wanted to make the brand so much a feature and kind of an anchor point of the new website that they really needed it to help with their ideation of how they could actually refresh the website. So it was all very interlinked and intermingled. So it was super fast-tracked. We're lucky that we had that crystallization document of the brand, which, I'm happy for you to share that template with your audience as well. Like that really, really helped. And I've worked with a lot of organizations to really assess their brand using those questions. But also our graphic designer are just incredible. But also I just think our leadership team was all really thinking in the same way. I think a lot of the time when you work with brand redesigns or refreshes, sometimes not everyone is on the same page. And when you're at work and in person, and there's workshops and teams and committees and all this sort of thing, things can get really slowed down. But this working from home lockdown time, I feel like everything's been really sped up, and the opportunities for collaboration and pushing things through have been much stronger. So yeah, we were really able to I think we presented it to the board in May for the board's approval. So we had a board Zoom about the new brand, and I talked them through that document that you just showed, and they just loved it. I don't think we had any negative feedback, and the same from the team as well. And the team has just loved seeing all the various different iterations of the brand from, now we have this very beautiful tissue paper and stickers for the shop that showcase the brand on our new, art masks. We've created masks during lockdown for, in Melbourne, we've had a stage 4 lockdown and wearing masks is compulsory. We've done our annual review, which for the first time had the beautiful new brand and brand colours. Increasingly, they're seeing more and more of the brand, and I think that they're really happy with it. So that's a good feeling.
So, wow, that's a lot.
Ethel, you're so good for my confidence. Just telling me how productive I am.
You've been very, very busy. So just to have a recap. Okay, so since the museum has closed its doors, you've done the love letters. You've done, which is a newsletter, sort of. It's released via email, right?
Yeah. It was very lo-fi. There was no imagery. There was just the tile and the curation from the influencer. But I think that simplicity really worked. And then from that, we would curate the week's social media coverage. So use their curations to showcase works from the collection, or via stories, we'd post a suggestion every day for people to listen to this or watch this, or enjoy this. So it all just fed through. But yeah, once the love letter's finished, we launched our new fortnightly EDM. So not quite as much work. It's not once a week, called Spiel, and that's been really successful as well. It's really taken off from the love letters too.
And Spiel is also via email?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so you have your email distribution list. You have the website. You also have Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and YouTube. Yeah.
Oh, you have YouTube.
We do. We don't use it as much as we should, but I think we'll be using it more and more with this new program series we've launched called Spotlight. We're doing more free events. So because they're free events, we can record them and upload them for future viewing on YouTube. And our beautiful program that we just did with the Jewish Museum of Maryland, Jewish Museum of London, and the South African Jewish Museum, which was all about, you can't travel, why don't you voyage to museums across the seas? And we did these 4 kind of beautiful tours and presentations with directors and curators from each museum. And they're on Facebook because they were streamed to our Facebook Live, but that sort of content will be increasingly uploading to YouTube as well.
So you mentioned it, and I wanted to go back to this. When you were working at the National Gallery of Victoria, you were heavily involved in social media. And in your work right now, it has not taken a back seat. In fact, you're maximizing what social media is offering. Are you seeing this as are you seeing more engagement from people?
Yeah, we are. Our Instagram following has doubled since we've been closed. So it's quite extraordinary. But I think that's also because of what we've been curating and showing on social media has been different, because we've been really showcasing the collection, a beautiful collection, and really showcasing content that's incredibly rich and engaging to people at this time. I think people have been using social media much more because we haven't been out in the world. We can't go to a museum, we can't go to a cinema. So I think that people have really been living online in a way that they might not have as much in the past. So we've certainly seen much higher engagement, following, when we look at the Google Analytics for the website, our curatorial and education programs team did these incredible virtual museum tours of our 5 permanent galleries since lockdown has happened. And, our virtual museum tours have been going incredibly well from what I can see on our website as well. So it has been a massive team effort. No one has been, slacking off. But it just so happens that a lot of the time, marketing is the one to finish the job, I guess, because, they're the one that has to get it online or push it out to, existing and potential audiences. Yeah.
And so you mentioned earlier, and I wanted to get back to this. How do technology develop, especially social media technology? How do you keep track of all this? How do you keep abreast on what's going on? Are you a native, what do you call it? Are you a voracious user on a personal level of this social media platforms?
Or I definitely don't. I definitely not with things like TikTok or something. I think I'm too old now. I'm nearly 40. Like when I see some of the new platforms, I don't want to do the TikTok dancing, you know, like I feel like an absolute idiot. I don't get it. But certainly with Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, I do use them quite a lot. So the way that during this time, I probably haven't been as good as I usually am because I just haven't had as much time and I've had my young son at home. But generally, I keep in touch in two ways. So I have really well curated Twitter lists that I, check every morning. One is for art, so developments in the arts, audience, museum education and so forth. One is to do with tech, so developments in social media, in things like AR, VR, but also like campaigns, the way that people are using those platforms to do really creative and interesting things, either in a big budget or a small budget way. And then I also have a really good Feedly. So, sadly we don't have Google Reader anymore, but instead I use Feedly, and I've got kind of one list which is all kind of like arts, arts commentary and media and audience and, MHM stuff, but another one which is all like, Buffer and HubSpot and Later and, Ad Age, and it's all about, developments in the platforms, how you can optimize, new ideas, when the image sizes change, all that stuff, but also really interesting, like best practice campaign related content from all over the world. So, you wouldn't think that, I don't know, a kind of Polish bank campaign in local area marketing would have any relevance for us, but it really does, because maybe it gives us an idea about how to go to someone for a partnership, to support an activation, or to promise local area marketing in exchange for the support of an exhibition, or just an innovative way to use the technology that we're all already using. So I generally, the first thing that I'll do if I was working in the office in those luxurious, almost feels like Mad Men era days, is to like hop onto my desk, check my emails, and then check those Twitter lists and those Feedly links just to get inspired, and to know what's possible, and how things are changing. So if you look, I think that all my lists are open. I'll check, but if you look on my Twitter, Emma Japan, all those lists I'm sure are open, so you can subscribe to them or just like mass follow to whoever's on them. And I often find that that's a really, really helpful way to get people on the right track for getting the information they need. Because one thing about people that work in the arts is, as you said, like, they are very busy. They are doing a lot of different things with their fingers in many different pies. So if there's an easy way to get the information you need to do the best, most impactful job you can, then I'm all for sharing it. I'm not an ego person. I think it's good to collaborate and share wherever possible.
Speaking of sharing and collaborating, so I have been an Instagram user on the on my personal Instagram user, and then I had this colleague at the museum at the and she was our marketing officer, and I was talking to her about Instagram and her photos, her personal photos, and I just happened to ask her why she kept doing stories. And as I'm more than 40 years old, so I was like, I didn't see the value of, why would you post something and it vanishes? What is the point? And so she spent a few minutes explaining this to me.
Yep.
And now she created an Instagram story monster. But
Instagram stories, I think that whenever something new happens, I'm sure that everyone, except people that live in a TikTok house or something, have elicited a little bit of a groan. It's like, oh, it's another thing that I have to learn about, another thing I have to get used to doing. But I think Instagram stories, we have a really interesting strategy for Instagram stories at the museum, because I'm a bit OCD and I really like our grid to be perfectly curated and matched. And, there's a formula that we use and we schedule it all properly in advance and check that it all matches by a preview. But with our stories, we do something quite different. So we use our Instagram stories to really, to be the change that we want to see in terms of that chesed and tikkun olam. So we really use it to be the umbrella of Jewish life. So we're not always promoting our own content. We may promote content, like do share. It's very easy to share on stories. So we share things from our multicultural museums, Victoria partners, like the Chinese Museum. We might share things from, Jewish chefs or, shuls or, our fellow cultural organizations in the Jewish space. Or, today, it's the first day of spring, we've shared beautiful imagery of flowers from the Ripon Lake Gardens, which are in our local area, and the beautiful works of wattle that the National Gallery of Victoria shared and the National Museum in Canberra shared. So we're encouraging community and through our stories, but also communicating to our followers who we think our counterparts are and who we think is part of our work in illuminating Jewish life and our work in being at the intersection of arts and Jewish culture. So it's kind of like this very interesting brand exercise and in generosity and communityhood that we use our stories to do. But our grid, our timeline, I suppose, stays very lovingly curated and quite different. So we're kind of using the two different parts of the same platform to achieve quite different things.
And I think that's a very good strategy to separate what one is doing. And I wasn't aware of the value of Instagram stories before. But one of the things that was explained to me was that with Instagram story, aside from the fact that you'll see who's been viewing, who your audience are, you can actually engage more with your community through Instagram stories, because you can post questions and it makes it easier to respond to questions you post or to the content that you post.
That's right. It's just a different kind of, I guess that it's kind of like the Snapchat version of Instagram, do you know what I mean, on stories, whereas the grid is a little bit more like what Facebook used to be like, but much more beautiful and curated and photographic and illustrative. More brand related, if you will. So, I think I don't know where the museum will be without Instagram. Like the other day, I was looking on our Shopify, and I think from each month, at least 20 or 30% of our sales come directly from Instagram for our shop.
Wow.
So it's very interesting the way that we've been able to integrate Shopify with Instagram and Facebook so that people can just tap the picture and go straight through to buy. I think it's really incredible. It blows my mind, actually.
That is incredible. And I think people go to Instagram because it's a visual space.
Correct.
And there's less clutter in terms of, and this is just my perspective. I go onto Facebook and you have multiple, you have text.
Community bulletin board. It's too much. It's so ugly. It's like,
I can understand that if you're looking for, and I think a cousin of mine, a young, much younger cousin, told me about, crafty people actually are on Instagram rather than on, other platforms.
You can make a living there for illustrators and craft people, artists, It's really, I've read so many articles, like even dating like 5 or 10 years back, about people cutting out gallerists, and just selling their work by Instagram, which is complicated in itself. But I think it's a really interesting opportunity for people to speak directly to an audience instead of being mediated through the media or through government or through a gallerist if they're not a commercial artist. It's an unmediated platform, and you can connect and get so much amazing data as well through those platforms.
I'm curious though, because as museum educators and curators, and even to a certain degree, collections managers, or people who take care of the collections, we have communities that where we talk about issues we have in our day-to-day job, knowledge and things like that. Is there such a thing for Marcom, museum Marcom? Yes, in museum.
I don't know. Not that I know of. I mean, maybe informal ones. There used to be a lot of things like social mail, but like meetups where, at a certain time every Friday, like 7 or 8 o'clock, I can't remember, it's a while ago, you could like drop in and meet with people that worked in the marketing and social media space. And I did connect with a lot of people that worked in the arts that way, but it wasn't a specific arts related meetup. It was for, I would be talking to people that work at the Australian Bureau of Statistics and the Bureau of Meteorology and big, Channel 7, and it was all sorts of people that were specifically working in that digital marketing space at the start. Like it felt like the start of it all. So definitely there. But for arts marketing, I think that there's a conference that happens, a global conference that happens once a year or once every 2 years, but I think it's very expensive to attend. I'll be very interested to know if it, goes online and is free now. But no, I don't think that it's as well, what do you call it? A well furnished space as much as the museum kind of curatorial collection programming world. No.
And I think that's one of the reasons why when I started thinking about GLAM chats, I really wanted to include and highlight roles that are not your typical, and you asked me this when I first emailed you.
Why? You want to talk to me?
Why? Why a marketing person? And this is precisely why, because there are so many things that goes on in an institution, in a museum, that is beyond collection scale, beyond education program, and it's a whole organism that has to work together. And I don't think a lot of non-GLAMers understand the value and the contribution of different parts and all these other things. The other thing also is that those who are interested in working in the GLAM world but are not curators or are not educators, there are other ways you can be part of the GLAM institution. If art history is not your thing, or history isn't your thing, or specific science is not your thing. So it's the reason, it's primarily the reason why I wanted to make sure that we have a marketing or communications person in GLAM.
Yeah, I think the marketing people, marketing, when you're meant to be unseen, do you know what I mean? Whereas a curator or collection or an education and programs manager, you're much more customer facing. So we're used to being behind the scenes, and I'm fine with that. But it's very kind and generous of you to want to hear about the work that we do, because I guess, maybe it is interesting. Maybe people don't realize the work that goes in. So, yeah.
And I have learned heaps from you. One hour that we have just been talking, and I wanted to thank you for your very, very, very busy schedule, for taking the time out to talk to us and share with us a glimpse of your world. Now, for everyone listening, this is our last episode in this I'd like to call it first set of series. We've had 6 episodes. We're going to take a break, and hopefully we will be back, but we are going to take a break from doing weekly broadcasts. If you guys have a particular GLAM role that you'd like us to have have GLAM chat talk to, or an institution, or you yourself would like to come on GLAM chat to talk to us and share your world with other people, with our viewers, send us an email, send us a message, and we'll see what we can do. But with that, Emma, thank you so much. It's been
Thank you. I thought you're doing an incredible job. Like, it's a
Oh.
real public service, what you're doing, like bringing all these different roles and insights to the fore. So you're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone who has been part of this. The guests, the 6 guests, my friends who have been nagging for information and ideas, and all of you guys listening. I've noticed also that we have people who watch after the broadcast, because it's a very odd, strange schedule, 3 o'clock in the afternoon on the Tuesday. But people do send messages saying that, oh, I've watched it. I'm like, oh, cool. Anyway, enough about that for now. Thank you so much, Emma. Thank you to everyone. For the meantime, stay safe, take care of each other, and take care of yourself. Be kind to others, and also be kind to yourself. Bye.
Bye.